Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and thank you so much for tuning into one of our talks today. I'm so thrilled today to be joined by the fantastic Jessica Sula to talk all about the Amazon Prime series Panic. And I always find the journey at the beginning of developing a character for a series so fascinating because there's so many facets that are still to come. And sometimes you know all of the details, sometimes you're still piecing a lot of it together.
Yeah.
And the way that you've described her, it sounds like you really started with the central core of her sheer determination as a character and then built from there. So why was that the central core of who you focused on her being at the beginning? And then how did that help you as you started to build more facets to her as the series progressed?
I think that was like when I would go in like to do the auditions, it was the thing of like Natalie is confident. Natalie is like a bit of a powerhouse. She is going to win this thing. Like that was like the main note that I would get prior to just like going into the room. And it was just the thing that I think helped carry me through the auditions. Um, and I feel like, especially when you have like Heather and Natalie side by side at the very beginning, I mean, things shift throughout this throughout the series, but the very beginning, that is supposed to be like, she's supposed to be just kind of fun and confident and very like determined. And that was really just like, because I hadn't read the book and I was told that the book was so different to the series, and Lauren was like, it's very different. Just to focus on that aspect was all I really had. And then, yeah, when you have a series and you have to build a character, you often find yourself finding the character truly like 3 months in. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true.
Not at
So how
all.
about
I mean, it also
yours?
sounds like it was such a gift to have Lauren Oliver so involved in the creation of the show as well. And there is a resource for you to be able to ask her a lot of questions. What are the ways in which she really helped you to guide you in finding Natalie, particularly in those early stages?
She so it was funny with Panic because like at the same time they also everyone, I think Lauren's one of those people that didn't want to cloud all the actors' minds with too much stuff. Like she'd give you a lot of detail with things, whereas at the same time keeping storylines kind of hush hush. You don't know where things are going to go, but also just reassure you in saying that what you were doing is what we were looking for in the character. So you kind of had to just take it day by day and hope you were doing an okay job. But she kind of off the bat, we had a conversation and she sort of broke down where she thinks Natalie comes from, why she does the things that she does. Like if they're going to expand on some of the, like, she can be viewed as kind of sneaky and like scheming, and like how they're going to expand on that. And she just gave me, sort of her backstory of Natalie, and I wrote it down, kind of exchanged with her where I think she comes from, and you sort of meet in the middle in your mind. And then honestly, the way I like to work is pretty, you know what's going on, so you can kind of break the rules. And I was really lucky to have just a whole cast that just had fun and liked to play, particularly with Olivia. Like, so it just felt it felt very natural.
And the scripts actually give a lot of detail about, when Heather and Natalie met, how they became friends. We obviously have the relationship on screen with her father as well, which gives a lot of the family backstory and her mother leaving. But beyond that, with the gaps that you were filling out, what were the most useful details for you to figure out beyond the information that the scripts and Lauren were giving you?
Um, I think, I mean, the mother, her storyline with her mum was really the running through line for me, because it was such a foundation of how she has kind of no real trust. Like, she doesn't, I feel like Natalie is very, that's why she also respects Heather, because I think they like are kindred spirits. And I feel like I also have like a whole theory where I feel like Natalie is in love with Heather, like very, but it's like too much time has gone by. That was something that I would carry in my head. I don't know if anyone else thought that, but I was like, she goes through so much for Heather that I'm like, there has to be, it's like, there's more there. But the through line with her mum is like she just is just that she's determined to rewrite a whole story. And that is something that Lauren talked to me about. It's just like creating her own story, and some people may view it as lying, but to her it's survival. And she hardly trusts anyone, and I think that's why she gets along with Heather, because Heather also has a lot of secrets, but they kind of know, like, you don't have to go into your personal life with me. I understand when something's painful. Not like surface level, they don't talk about how they're feeling, but I think they just respect that there's a lot of pain there in their childhoods and in their past. So I think having her mum made me feel a lot more empathetic to, like, having that sort of building that foundation with like her mother and her childhood helped me have empathy whenever she would do something that might seem, some people may view it as like just nasty or just sneaky, you know.
Yeah, it's always, I imagine it's always really interesting as an actor when you don't necessarily agree with the actions that your character is taking, but your job is to understand exactly where it's coming from and to play it in a completely convincing way that that is the decision that they've made and they fully stand behind it.
And then you get so protective because you're like, no, you don't understand. She has to do this thing because all of these other factors have built up for this. And she's been planning it in this way. Now it's going off course. So she has to do something drastic. That's why, stick with her. Like, that was, yeah. You know, also sometimes I wouldn't know where things were going, and I'd read another script, or I would be informed that they were editing something in a different way. And I was like, oh my God, that's going to make me look okay. I was like, all right, fine. Oh, I'll just have to reinvent something new. You know what I mean? Just always have to like change it up with why she's doing what she's doing.
Well, because the series has already aired, I feel like we can talk a little bit spoiler.
Okay, great. Okay, cool. Yeah, the whole judge stuff is weird. Yeah.
When did you find out that that was going to be a huge part of her story and her character arc? Was that something that they told you at the very beginning, or did you have to kind of play into potentially a few different directions throughout filming?
They told me that pretty early on, but then they said it might change, and then it changed. And then it was a thing of like, well, they could have told you that, but actually so and so is a judge, and they're just telling you that so they have a performance, getting a performance out of you. You know, it could be just like some like Jedi mind tricks that they're trying to do. But I think it was like solidified like midway through, like you were definitely a judge. And I viewed it as Natalie from the get-go was trying to potentially pair up with someone prior to Heather entering. I viewed it as she was trying to pair up with anyone in the competition she viewed as strong, and then was going to split the money as she ends up trying to do a deal with Heather and Dodge. But before, like, if that person won, she would take her money and split it then with Heather. That's why I think she was so, that's what fueled me with the anger of, I can't believe you'd even enter this. You can't do this. Like, I have this all figured out. Like, that was the fuel of that argument for me to try and take it away from being just like, you're trying to steal my light, or you know what I mean? It was more practical. Like, Natalie has been a judge from the get-go, and she has been wanting to win money for Heather.
It's also really interesting to think about the effect of growing up in a very tight-knit small community where this is part of everyday life for them. You know, this competition happens every summer. It's multi-generational at this point, and they've grown up knowing people who've participated in it. There's also a lot of urban legend, and you know, there's all those scenes peppered out throughout the series where people are like, oh, and then this happened to this person. So they have a sense of what they're getting into. And how did you think that that would impact her, having grown up with this thing around her and knowing, you know, at a certain point that she could start planning, you know, probably well before she entered, that she'd been thinking about this for a long time as her escape route?
Oh yeah, I think she has been thinking about this for a long time, and I think that's maybe why previous judges picked her. because she's pretty savvy. And I think Natalie has like a fearlessness about her. And like my father's always like, that's because teenagers, you know, they always do it's like things that are just can be considered unhinged. But I truly think Natalie has like a fearlessness about her, and she researched everything, and just from growing up in the town and knowing people, and she just figured a lot of stuff out. So she might have been spotted, like I just imagine her being spotted by a previous judge and being chosen because of that, because all those urban legends, all of those stories are exciting and fun to her, and she's going to use them to win. So yeah, that's how I sort of thought about her preparing.
And when we learn that she's a judge, there's the scrapbook that we see, and we start to see how
A Zodiac killer book, as I like to
but it's so meticulous, the level of detail that she
Yeah.
has in there, and the fact that it's not just that she's writing information down, it's like fully scrapped book, as if it's like some sort of memory capsule for her as well. But did that detail, when you saw the book that they had designed for her, did that make you think about her differently and how she would be so meticulously detailed in other parts of her life as well, even outside of Panic?
Yeah, she's a little bit scary. She has like an edge to her, I think. I think when I saw that book, first of all, I was like, I made the Zodiac killer joke on set, I think. And then I also said, like, is this book made out of skin? Because of like, it was just so bad. Like, it was just, I was like, is there someone trapped in this, in like the stock room in the pharmacy? I think I think that is the thing about Natalie, is like, yes, I feel in her heart she believes she's doing something good, but Natalie has a strange potential if she's like placed in any other sort of genre, or like, I don't know, like in another storyline, like she could almost become like a dictator. You know what I mean? Like starts off on the right path, then there's like meticulously planning everything to the point where it's like, wait a minute, I don't think, and you see that she doesn't make good choices at times. She makes really silly ones, or she gets played herself. Like the other judges know that she's doing something, and they're like, girl, we can see you, like now we're going to turn the tables on you and you're out of here. Like, so I think there's an edge to Natalie that is very, I don't know, for me as an actor is appealing, because it's a little bit dangerous. Like,
But whether she's making decisions that are good or absolutely terrible, like you said, she has so much conviction and self-assurance in every single thing that she does, kind of almost to a degree that you can only have when you're that particular age. Was it important for you that you were representing her as a character that always knew exactly who she was and had that level of self-confidence and self-belief in every single thing she did, no matter what it was?
yeah, it was very important. It was also really fun, because sometimes I look back at that age and I think, oh wow, I mean, even just like the way I entered like an open audition to get my first job was like, I for some reason was like, it'll all work out. And I nowadays, when I'm auditioning for things, do not have that attitude. I'm like, well, we'll see. Maybe they'll like me, maybe they won't. So it was kind of fun to tap back into that again. And I think I had to play her with conviction, because, you know, she's going to be a character that's going to stir up a lot of feelings for people. Maybe she'll be someone like you can like love to hate for a while, but those are honestly my favorite characters to play. They're so much fun, because also finding the humanity in like their bizarre decisions is great. It's like, I mean, you could go on so many different journeys and trajectories of like why they're doing what they're doing. But certainly that young confidence plays a huge part. And it was like sort of fun to reminisce and like remember when I sort of used to have that.
And I mean, like you said before, there are moments where her plans start to derail throughout the series as well. And so there are moments where we see some of the cracks and some of the vulnerabilities, and she falls apart a little bit. How did you play around with when you wanted to allow her to have those fallibilities and that vulnerability, and for that to come through?
Just in the simple things of like, ultimately she's still a kid, and she loves her friends. She loves Bishop and Heather, and I think reality hitting her of, no, like, it's that thing of, oh, I'm going to keep this all a secret and I'll keep everybody protected and they can't find out any sort of detail because I need to keep them protected from this information. And then finally seeing that, oh, the reason why I was trying to protect them was because I was just lying and I just hurt their feelings. I think there's that moment when, it was like her individual challenge and it all kind of comes crashing down where she's so blunt about how she feels about Heather and just says it and Heather sees it. And I think it was just tapping into the thing of, no, I never ever wanted you to hear this. And now that I'm seeing it and hearing it, I know you're way stronger than how I've perceived you. I've made a huge mistake. Like I think I just sort of went into that of just, I made a huge mistake and I've betrayed my friend and I wish she could understand where I'm coming from. So in those moments, like just the basic, I hurt you and that feels horrible. And then with Dodge, it's like, I like you and I don't know how to go about it because, you have a guard up, but I can have a guard up too, but I like you, so it was just this very simple emotions.
Did you view her generally as a character who's probably built up a lot of walls around herself out of necessity, looking back to her experience with her mom leaving? So she's got that fear of abandonment and letting someone be close to her. And then even when she talks about becoming friends with Heather as kids and how when she first moved to the town, nobody took the time to get to know her. And so she's always kind of existed in a little bit more of like an insular social circle as well. So did you think of her as someone who's always had reason to build up a lot of guard, and so it can be a little bit harder to get close, but then once you do, it's a completely different side?
Yes, I do think with Natalie, that's exactly it. It's kind of that thing of, I imagine her mother would tell her things like, you never rely on anyone, you only rely on yourself. And all those moments with the kids not talking to her and her mother then eventually leaving, I think gave her like just a little bit of anger of like, you don't know that I'm good on my own and I can make it on my own and I don't need anyone. And I'm going to become the best at whatever I need to become the best of. And I think that fuels her also, is being cast out. I think she's one of those people, which is why I guess she's deciding to go off to Hollywood. She's like up for the challenge. So yeah, definitely. And I think that's the thing. I feel like with Bishop, Heather, and Natalie, they weren't like the most popular kids in school, but they were like that friendship group that like nobody would really mess with because they were just always in their own world and doing their own thing. And like, that's where she gets to soften and be herself with them. But yeah, certainly got a little sassy exterior.
With the fact it is such a tight knit, intimate friendship group, I feel like that breeds a really specific intimacy that we see on screen in the way that they are with each other, the comfort level that they have, the lengths they'll go to each other, and even just kind of the physicality and the way that they move around each other, and they're in close proximity a lot of the time because it also stems back to childhood and that unique aspect as well. And so how did the three of you set about determining what that intimacy was going to be from the fact that they really just have the three of themselves?
I think from the get-go, that's why I feel Panic was just a really special show to work on. We all were so close. Like it felt very natural. We could just mess around together and just joking around. Like it was really just that. We just do a lot of like bits, like a lot of very like make up little sketches. And we all kind of have a very similar little senses of humor. And I think we tried to show that intimacy through that. And we were, in this place where we're not from. So you just get to explore it with the cast whenever you can. And I think I feel like that's how we sort of bonded to help with those other big sort of scenes when it comes to like something being fairly melancholy or something being an argument. It was the fact that we had a baseline sort of, we love to just joke and like give each other a little like shove or like a hug. That I think helped. I feel like I hope it comes across. I really do, because I love those two people so much.
It really, really does, between the three of you on screen. And with the fact that you were also filming on location in a small town in Texas and kind of had that immersion, not only with the rest of the cast, but a lot of the crew were local. And so they could tell you like, oh, this is where you want to go for dinner. Like, let's go grab drinks here. How did kind of having that immersion, both with the rest of the cast, but also just the area itself and the community, really lend itself to some of the details that we then get to see on screen between everybody?
Oh, I mean, big time. It's just, you're in it 24/7. It's not like you fly and do a couple of exteriors and then the majority of the time you're in a studio in LA or you know what I mean? Like that would be crazy and expensive, but but that happens too. No, it was just like we all became friends with the crew. It just becomes your life always for like 6 months. And, you will discover a little place or you'll hear a story about someone growing up somewhere and it's close to where you're filming. And, you could use that and say, oh, maybe Natalie likes to go there on the weekend. Or maybe this is the spot that, made her think she wanted to be in a Western. She was like running around in the outskirts of town and just was imagining herself like riding a horse in the open open fields, so all of that stuff definitely helps. Just think about truly it is just imagining a whole story for yourself in your head. So location, but it's funny because that will always dawn on me like truly like 4 months later, and I'm like, oh, that would have helped with this scene. It's really, as I'm shooting, I'm like, oh, I really like that location. I bet Natalie would have liked it there. Oh my goodness, why didn't I think of that? It was nice with Bishop's house because we got to go there a couple times, and I would imagine us all playing there as like little ones, like Heather, Natalie, and Bishop, especially in that home, just running around it. So that was fun. That was fun.
The show also dips into a lot of extremities in terms of the situations and the circumstances that these characters find themselves in. And yet you always bring it back to the grounded element of these characters and their relationships with each other and why they're doing certain things, all being crafted into that emotional backstory and history that they have with each other. Was that something that you all talked about a lot in terms of thinking about how to make those scenes really work and to find that intimacy?
Yeah, I think you kind of have to. Yeah, we really had to, because it can just feel, you're like, how am I going to make this? It's something that can seem ridiculous. How can I make this real to me or these circumstances important to me? And you just have to really tap into the base of the scene as, the kids want to get out. They want to make money, or I'm trying to convince Heather of something. You just have to break it down in the most simple way. And I think everybody wanted to do that because we also, it's fun when, I don't know, like it's always fun when I watch a show that could be deemed as something as fantasy or, not real, but you see the actors really committing to it, because you have to. It's the world that you're in, and you want to do a good job, and that's why you're there. So we were just, I think, despite all the things that may happen in a scene or a script or in the overall plot, we were like, we gotta ride with it and like commit as much as possible.
And when it comes to the challenges, the show never shies away from building a lot of tension and gravitas into those situations, and at the same time it is still there with the semblance of it being a YA piece in mind tonally. Did you all talk about how far you could push those extremes, and where can we take the situation to before it perhaps gets a little bit too dark for what we want tonally for the show?
I don't know, I feel like that was more on like that really is more on like what, like story wise, what they wanted to do. So we really just, you know, if ever there was a scene where we would like actually dissect something and say, oh my gosh, this is actually very this is very intense, and you know, you would like lean to your director, like your producer or something, and they'd be like, well, we really want you to play it in this way because it can't go too off, you know. But it, you know, I feel like it touches on it, and that's all it really needs to do. And we commit to every scene, and that's what we can do. And then however they want to like edit and compile it together, you just have to like leave it up to them. But we knew it wouldn't go too far because of the audience that we had, you know. Even though, I mean, I guess, yeah, that's funny because it is like we're doing these stunts that are dangerous and dealing with subject matter that is traumatic. Yeah, that was sometimes that's where we just had to work together as a group if we were like in these big scenes together, and just kind of try and figure out how to make it as real as possible. And in real life, so many, it's like a strange roller coaster, and oftentimes people react in a way that's very it's not too big, you know what I mean? It's always like, this thing has happened to me and I gotta keep it moving. So that's what we sort of relied on, to not make it too I guess too dramatic or too dark.
The show also has a really phenomenal group of directors working on it, and primarily female filmmakers as well. What are the different ways in which each of the directors would work with you on helping you find a lot of character moments or narrative arcs?
It was really, I remember this one time with Ganja in the last episode where she was like, that scene with me and Olivia in the car, and she was like, I want you guys to have fun in this scene because I haven't seen you both laugh for a while. And that was really nice. It was just like figuring out like emotionally where we can go with every scene, how it doesn't have to be so rigid or so like played down, as because, you know, we were trying to be so grounded all the time that sometimes we might miss a moment with that, and you can add some energy in there. And I think every director was very good at saying, you know what, you can switch it up here, and you can make this, you can be angry here, or you can let this go, or you know what, have a bit of fun. Every director was really good at that because I think, referring to your previous question, because of the tones and the themes and it being YA, you need a range, and you don't want it to be too like all of us mumbling and playing like a game. You want to have some fun, ridiculous moments in there too. You want to be able to watch it. I think it was fun with Viet. I'm trying to remember what episode he did. He was really great at like the physical space of like, because he used to do editing, so he would like maneuver you around, and that would just often help you. That would sometimes like help me get into character, like choreograph me through the space, and then it will be over. It was like moving, like doing the whole like fire sequence. He was like really good at like planning that and prepping that. And then like Megan was really good at all like a lot of emotional stuff and would help you talk through story, and Jamie was also good at like adding in like energy and like trying to figure out where to get some fun moments, particularly for like the Dickens party scene when it was absolutely freezing cold. So yeah, I think that was, I feel like for the directors it must have been, and then of course Rai, who I love. I think she was also really amazing with backstory, and we would do a lot of rehearsals. I mean, she was also the first director in, so she had a little bit of that time, but she'd really like give us like a grounding of what the scene is. I think that's what I felt going through with her.
And you mentioned earlier how the first time that you went in and auditioned for something was back when you were a teenager, and you've amassed such an incredible amount of experience within the industry. But what are the ways in which this particular project created unique and new challenges for you as an actor compared to previous projects you've worked on?
Stamina, because I've never worked on, I mean, I've never like worked on something so long where I was like in it for a lot of it. You know, usually like something like Scream was a couple of months, and it was like short limited series. Godless, I wasn't in it for a large amount, but they like kept us there. However, you know, I was just sort of like chilling in New Mexico. I think Panic was like, you know, the long shoot, and then we had COVID disrupting everything. So it was truly just all about stamina, a lot of night shoots, trying to figure out how to make things as real as possible, despite like any of the circumstances in the script, finding it amusing that I'm this age playing an 18-year-old. And I don't know, I've been just trying to keep going with acting, and nothing, I've been sort of trucking along, and I wasn't doing too well. So when I got the job, it was really nice to know that I'd be able to be working as all actors know. So I'm still always taken aback by being hired on anything. So it was nice to be hired.
Well, I'm so glad that we got the opportunity to see your performance in this series. It's really great. So congratulations, and thank you so much,
Thank
Jessica.
you. That's really kind. That's really lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much for wanting to talk to me.